Nicky D here, coming to your live man yet again. Today we have a Reddit post that I want to react to. About splitting a bill at a restaurant. So without any further ado, I think we kind of just dive into it, and then we just see what happens, right? So that being said, so this is a post about splitting the bill on a date. And I just thought it was kind of interesting because I have talked about this in length on my podcast. And the post was interesting because it just the conversation. So let's get into it. So this is from what I believe, from reading from the post, it is a guy's perspective. So the guy will be in blue, and the woman will be in like the gray background with the iPhone. Okay. So he says, and we're just into the middle of a conversation. He goes, "We'll be meeting anytime soon again." So from that inference, I think it's fair to say that they've probably met for one time. We don't know what that was. I think it was like a coffee or something. Okay. She goes, "Oops, just giving my dog a bath. Sorry." I guess that's sorry. SOZ. I have no idea. "You keep asking to take me out, but the real question is, where will you be taking me out?" Okay, so I don't necessarily think that that's like a bad response from her, but I don't like it personally. I don't like it. Okay, I don't like it. It just rubs me the wrong way. Like hey, you're asking, you're asking for my availability, but you're not really saying where though, right? Like what's going on there? Like you kind of need to do better than that. I thought the first thing was, hey, like, are we meeting up anytime soon? What's going on? I think that is trying to see availability. You're trying to feel out availability. I just don't really like her response. I don't necessarily think it's bad. I personally am not, like, I wouldn't be very happy with that myself. I'd be like, ugh, like that'd kind of be a rough feeling for me. His response is interesting. So he goes, "Do you have a place in mind?" Yeah, even that as well, I'm not like 100% loving that. I used to think that was a really good idea. But I think just kind of naming a place is kind of better sometimes. People are very indecisive. That's not just women, that's kind of everybody. Like I run a board game event. If I ask people what they want to play, everybody just gives the same answer. I'm up for anything, right? Well, that doesn't tell me anything. Okay, well, there's 300 games at this cafe. What do you want to play, right? No, I'm up for anything, right? So people are very indecisive. So asking the question back, I used to think was a good idea because you'd like put the ball in their court. Like, hey, like, I'm not doing all the work. Like, what do you think? Like, where do you want to go? Right? I'd love to hear from you. And sometimes you can actually just get a feeling of where they want to go beforehand. If I try to line up like an arcade date, right? And they say like, I don't know, maybe they bring it up randomly. What do you like doing in your spare time? I love going to the arcade sometimes, down the mall. Right? Hey, well, what do you think for a first date? That's a good way to do that. Again, I'm just saying, like, for both of their responses, neither of them are bad. They're perfectly fine responses. It's just like, I'm just trying to give commentary and nitpick where I can. And I think they're both nitpickable because it's like, where are you taking me? Right? When he's like, hey, are we meeting up soon? Well, where are we going to go? Right? So it's like putting all the work on the guy, and then he throws it back going, hey, like, well, what do you have in mind? They're not necessarily bad. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm just giving my opinion here. So she responds with, "No, I'm an indecisive girl, and I will eat just about anything. So it's hard to choose just one." Again, you're just throwing the ball back and forth. This is the problem. This is why you don't ask this question. Like, hey, well, what do you have in mind? Because this is going to happen, right? And it's not every time, obviously, but it happens enough that it's annoying that you're like, well, this sucks. Because now it's back to me, and, it's just like we're just going back and forth, and I don't have a read here of where you want to go. So he goes, "Are we thinking dinner date or something more exciting?" Now, more exciting, we don't have any explanation, but maybe he means like bowling or something. Bowling's fun. She says, "Dinner date." Okay, it's all fair. And he says, "Chili's," with the emoji. I think that's kind of funny, but it's just a name. Nothing wrong with Chili's. It's a good spot, right? Honestly, I'd be stoked. As long as it's not like McDonald's, I'd be good with that, like Moxie's or something. It's like, that's great, right? Jack Astor's, it's like great, right? Like that's all prices nowadays. That's basically a 5-star restaurant, right? She says, "Oh, LOL," with an emoji. And he says, "I take it then you don't want to go to Chili's." I didn't read that right, but don't worry about it. I'm trying to blitz through it because there are like 4 pages here. So she goes, "Nothing wrong with Chili's. It's just a cheap place, and I'm questioning if you think I'm a cheap person. It's not somewhere you go on a dinner date to." And then there's half a text, so we'll go to the next page for it. So putting out the idea of Chili's and saying it's a cheap date spot, just don't say that and just name something else. Be like, you know what? I've really wanted to try this sushi place lately. You know, what do you think about that one? Like, that's an idea, right? But saying it's like, that's a cheap date, right? You're just insulting him. It's like, I wouldn't even have gone forward with this conversation. I'd be like, it was an idea. You weren't giving anything, right? Like, that would be the defense. It's like, well, you know, I asked what you wanted to do. You said anything. I said Chili's, and then you said Chili's was cheap. Well, I guess you're not up for anything, right? So that's why you just don't really ask that question. And we'll continue though, but it gets worse. Yes. More like stop by to eat on a road trip or something like that. I don't know if you would do that with Chili's. Like, you would stop by on a road trip. I feel like that would be like a gas station, a McDonald's, you know? He goes, well, then where would you prefer? So again, he asks, she goes, something like Nobu. So I don't know anything about Nobu, but I did read in the comments, I think it's like sushi, and apparently it is pricey. He says it's pricey. Somebody says, pricey. You have expensive taste, but if we're both paying, I am down. Now, before we read into the next 2 pages, I'm going to quickly talk about that. So I don't know if that was a good call to say that. I don't really like her response. I would have been over this already when she said that was a cheap idea. It's like, okay, well then that's why I do an ice cream, right? If you want to go get an ice cream and walk in the park, in a public park, then I'm down with that. And if you say that's cheap because it's like $2.50, well then we don't need to go on a date. I'm not interested in you, right? Like, I want someone who cares more about money. Like, less about money, sorry. More about money. It's like, that is cheap. No, like, less about money. I don't want that to be a problem. Like, why is that an issue, right? It's not an issue for me to go on a dinner date. It's just, I'm never going to do that on a first date. And if this is a second date or third date or whatever, I like, it's so early in to just start saying things like that. Like, I just feel like it's a little strong. So Buddy's response of, if we're going to split the bill, I'm down. I think that's like, okay. It is confrontational. I'm not going to argue that. I think it's a confrontational point because obviously most people will say this. They'll say 2 things. Most people will say 2 things. Is the guy should pay for the first date, or whoever asks out the other person should pay, right? That's what most people agree to. Normally the second one, actually. Whoever asks out the person should pay. So let's be generous, and let's say about 90% of the time that's still going to be the guy, all right? I think it's fair. Right? You're on a first date, second date, you don't really know the person, and the place I pick is like $20 for a meal, and you've picked a place that's double. I'm not saying that Nobu's double. I'm just making an assumption. You know, and then I have to lump the whole bill, and then it doesn't work after. You know, I'm out quite a bit of money. You know, and you know, there's arguments you can make on both sides, right? You know, makeup, dolling up. The guy has to get a good outfit, pay the bill, right? There are things to do, right? But it's not fair, right? So to say, hey, by the way, if you want to split that going into it, you know, I'm very happy to go. So it sounded like he was probably okay to pay the bill at Chili's, but when she named a higher costing establishment, he went, you know, listen, I'd have to think about that. I just don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to say, and I think maybe he knows that I know, like, that we both are thinking the same thing, that it's like, this probably isn't going to go forward. So he's probably just saying, okay, I'm going to just preemptively say, hey, let's split. It tears apart pretty quickly here. So yeah, let's just get on with it here. I think the video's been long enough. So she goes, that's strike 3. If Nobu is pricey, then I question what kind of man I am working with here. Of course we could split the bill for you. Of course we could split the bill, but for you to predetermine that option is, and then an emoji. Last page, makes me feel like you are holding me to the obligation that I have to pay. This feels super presumptuous on your part. He goes, I am so confused. Strikes. I don't want to leave this off on the wrong note, so could you please explain to me what I did wrong? That's a good response, actually, where he's like, could you break that down for me, right? The strike 3 thing is really odd. Like, she's just counting strikes off, and when you hit 3 strikes that she doesn't like, she gets rid of you. I just think that's really immature. I don't really have much more to say about it than that. You lack awareness if you can't see what you've done wrong. You lack generosity, and you're clearly more concerned about costs rather than the experience itself. Sorry, but you will not be seeing me again. I want to keep my peace instead of allowing the possibility of an egotistical man in my life, so your number is getting deleted. Goodbye. So I'll try to wrap up quickly here, because like I said, I think we've talked too long here. So, yeah, I think that was a good response from him to ask about that. I think the strikes are just completely immature. And yeah, like it just looks like she was looking for a way to get out. The fact that she had noted that he is concerned about the cost rather than the experience, it kind of sounds the other way around. He suggested Chili's and she said that was too cheap. Why is it too cheap? Right? It sounds like you're more concerned about the cost than that experience that in itself, right? That's why I pick an ice cream. If there's a problem with paying, for a coffee, right? Going for a coffee for $3.50, then I don't know what to tell you, right? Because then you're more concerned about the cost. I won't even do drinks anymore. If the woman's like, yeah, I want to go for drinks, I'll just be like, yeah, I'll get a soda, but if you want to get a couple drinks, you can, right? I'm not going to do that, right? And if that's a problem, then it's like, it's okay, no hard feelings to you. It's just that's not the date I'm looking for, right? We're all different, and we're not all compatible. That's how it's always going to go. But yeah, I don't like her response at the end, and then calling him egotistical. It's just really odd, lacking awareness. He just asked a question. He's like, hey, what did I say that you're not agreeing with? And I think that was good. I think it was good that he attempted to try to figure it out, but I think it was already a lost cause at that point. Again, I think I've said too much, so we'll just kind of wrap it up. But yeah, let me know what you guys think if you find this post interesting. I thought it was interesting, and I think it's a conversation piece. So, all right, take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Yeah, see ya. Peace.